Oh, baby, we are going back to Boston, tied at 2. Welcome to the Sixers Talk podcast. Danny Pommells, Tyrone Johnson, Danny Pommells. So glad you could be here with me, Ty. Good to dissect the action with you. Ben Barry, our producer extraordinaire, is at a wedding. Noah Levick is writing away with stuff on the website. Be sure to check out his work on NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com, his 3 observations after the game. But, woo, bro, my neck is still a little tense. My nerves ain't quite where they should be. What a game. Upsetting the Sixers squandered as much as a 16-point lead, I believe, but they get the victory. They had separate leads of 16 points in the second quarter, 15 points in the third quarter, but give credit to Boston for coming back, especially bouncing back in the second half. Jason Tatum was awful in the first half, but as good as Boston was, James Harden and Joel Embiid were that much better. I think the question I want to start things off with you with Ty is that I'm curious, does Harden have to go to 40 plus every time for the Sixers to win?
It's a tough thing, and we noticed it on Friday as well, even when they lost, in that the Celtics have more good players
than
the Sixers do. But
200%.
Friday, in a losing effort, Embiid was the best player on the floor. He didn't have a lot of help. Tonight, Harden was the best individual player on the floor. But again, the Celtics have more good players. And what you saw was, as soon as you had to start playing Niang and some of those other guys for extended minutes, the Celtics are coming with Derek White and they're playing Brogdon. And they just unfortunately have more good players.
Grant Williams.
Right. So Harden does, have to score. Him or Embiid going to have to go off to win each game. And they've been able to do it to get it 2-2. And now we'll find out what happens on Tuesday and Thursday now that we know that there's going to be 6. But it's good that the Sixers players have been able to step up, Harden and or Embiid. But it would be nice if someone else could, because it looks like the Celtics just have a more well-balanced roster.
Bro, he goes for 45 in game 1. Then in games 2 for 3, Harden goes 5 for 28 combined in those 2 games. He goes for 42 here in game 4, assists and 2 rebounds shy of a triple-double. He's playing like 2 players, essentially. Like the numbers are like, you could split his numbers in half, and that would be good contribution from like 2 other players on the roster. So it's difficult, man, to particularly as the playoffs advance. You get past this point to the Eastern Conference Finals, NBA Finals, those teams are going to be just as deep, just as versatile, just as multifaceted. So it is a little frustrating that you have to get that type of contribution from Harden, particularly when Joel Embiid isn't 100% and you're paying Tobias Harris $180 million. Tyrese Maxey is what he is. You're still getting a discounted price on him, but not to bring the money into it. But in essence, that does factor in somehow, some way. But it's frustrating that you have to get that type of contribution from Harden, because when he's not doing that, you see what happens in games 2 and 3.
You're absolutely right. And it's just, it's a little frustrating. You bring up Maxey, and this is not a knock. He's 22 years old. Right. So this isn't a knock. It's more just the Sixers have to play with him at 22 years old. They don't get the 25 to 30-year-old version of Maxey. They get this version of him. And you can just see in moments it becomes too big for him. And part of the reason why Al Horford was able to do such a good job on Joel Embiid, it's because they're not afraid of him or Tobias, as you mentioned, in any way. They're really only worried about 2 guys. Right. Meanwhile, when the Sixers go on defense, they're kind of worried about all 5 guys in some way. Robert Williams, not so much on the offensive end, but when he's not in the game and Horford's in at center, he stands at the 3-point line. He may make shots. It's just what you're seeing individual greatness versus a balanced team effort. And you just see it from the Celtics that they have the better team effort. But it's still 2-2. It doesn't matter how you got there. Right. If you're able to win game 5, you can win this series. If you lose game 5, it'll be tough to win the series. It's kind of like the Sixers have earned the right to go on the road and try to take it. But you mentioned the frustration of like Harden doesn't seem to have an in-between against.
Right. It's like 40 plus or nothing.
Right. So it becomes a difficult situation, a difficult matchup. But at the same time, you have some hope, because you think sooner or later the others will have that good game. Sooner or later, Maxey, Tobias, those guys will have that game, and they didn't have it tonight. But if they have it at some point, you feel like the Sixers have a really good shot. It's just the Celtics have done a really good job limiting those other guys.
Listen, if they don't have a good game in them, the Sixers might be packing it up here pretty soon because it's gonna suddenly, Ty, it's a 3-game series, right?
Yep.
Boston has home court advantage. Game 7 will be in Boston. We got 2 games here for the Sixers to try to figure out, who they are and what they're going to be here. And frustrating and upsetting and all that stuff doesn't mean a thing when it comes down to when the ball's tipped up, because there's no moral victories. There's no what if. We all know the frustration and the angst that's tied up in the Sixers not getting past the second round for 20 plus years. So, you got all the powers that be and the principals and the faces and the crowd. And you got freaking Micah Parsons rocking a maxi jersey and Doc Rivers in a zoot suit up in the suite. And the whole gamut, bro. Like, it's time to put up or shut up. Like, I'm tired of talking. You know what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right. You just get so tired of this, the Celtics. You're tired of Boston. And you see it all illuminated. I don't know. Julius got glasses on in the suite. I mean, what is he doing?
Somebody got to him. Somebody said, "Doc, you need to snazz it up a little bit." He said, "Okay, I'll wear this and I'll do that." Like,
I'll bring some of my old Nets, swag with me to the
exactly.
Like, it was just. But you're absolutely right. It's you got here, and we can talk more about this individual game, but the series, each game has had like a life of its own, and this one was obviously the wildest one of them all, and. And the unfortunate part also today, I think this was the first time where you saw Embiid actually physically tired coming back from there. I think in the fourth quarter, he was gassed. Yeah. I really do. I think he was physically tired. And then that led.
Well, at one point, he fell untouched. He just fell down. Like, going back on defense or offense or whatever it was. But he just fell down.
Yeah, I think physically he was spent. And you see it on the court. And then that now all of a sudden they're talking about Horford. I'm not trying to disrespect Horford. What I'm saying is that if you feel good and the person you're guarding doesn't, you're gonna look good. And I think he found a second win in that in overtime where he makes the basket. Then there was the close challenge play with him and Smart where he got more aggressive again. I think that was his getting the second win. That's something to monitor. But the tough thing is, again, it goes back to that supporting cast, as we mentioned. How many minutes can you have Embiid and or Harden off the floor if that other crew isn't doing anything? So it's this fine line that you have to walk at least for another maybe a week or two with the knee. They say the knee is getting better as time goes on. He's not re-injuring the knee, but it's not 100%. It's not sound. So, I mean, maybe if they get to the conference finals, he can maybe move to a different brace or move to a sleeve or something like that. But for now, it's this fine balance where you're trying to not use him too much, but the game falls apart if he comes out of the game at the same time. And the same thing applies to Harden. I think he was tired in games 2 or 3 with that every other game situation where it's one day off, just like it'll be one day off after this one. With travel, it's a tough series for the Sixers, and it's the matchup that we talked about going into it. It's not just that the Celtics are the best team ever, or they're like the Warriors were when they had that great record. Or it's the matchup against the Sixers. It's not a great matchup, and the Sixers are kind of finding a way to survive.
Yeah, and like when Embiid's not in the game, spacing is different. Maybe the flow is different. So there is just all this, these little minutiae and details that kind of make up the series and everything else. And listen, you talked about the evenness of this Boston team, and it seems like time was the reason why the Sixers were able to win this game 4, because Marcus Smart ends up hitting the 3 at the buzzer that everyone in the arena could see was late. Right. But obviously, that comes on the heels of James Harden hitting that clutch corner 3 when Embiid kicked it out to him. So it just really came down to who had the ball last, in essence. And like you said, one of the wildest games of the series. And I hate in this particular game, I think what made it wild was, and I say this and take it with a grain of salt, the refs playing a role in how the outcome was determined. And I don't think it was the refs playing a role in the fact that, they were bad or, they were good. It's just that there's so many of those in between kind of could go either way, 50-50 plays. And the Sixers can't get out hustled, out second chance pointed, out rebounded, and have the referees making those calls that don't go their way. You know what I'm saying? It's all combines what in essence should be a loss, especially when you blow 2, almost 20-point leads. So the Sixers should feel lucky, and the game goes to OT. So your Sixers should feel lucky to win this one. and go back to Boston. Like, there's no way you can go back to Boston down 3-1 and expect to come out victorious in the series. But you go back down 2-2. Suddenly it's a 3-game series, and this is exactly maybe not what the Sixers wanted, because you stole game 1 in Boston and you're hoping maybe you could protect home court, but not exactly what they wanted. But you have to be thankful and grateful that this game turned out the way it did.
Absolutely. And with the referees, it's a fine line that they have to walk in. That you mentioned the loose balls, and all that's correct. At the same time, do you want guys selling out to get to loose balls if the refs are calling the game tight? And it seems like the refs have been just wildly inconsistent with what they call. Like on that Embiid playing overtime, for example, when Smart slides in there, we've seen that call both ways in this very series.
Yeah, it just matters, right? Who's looking at it and who wants to. It's so subjective.
Right, and that's what makes it so tough. And when you're talking about loose balls, a lot of times those are, when we say 50-50 balls, that means both teams literally could be getting it. They could both be reaching for it at the same time. And Niang, for example, now he ended up hurting them, but that was also because he didn't get a very good whistle in the game tonight. He did not get a good whistle. He ends up with 5 fouls. A couple of those were very ticky-tack type of things. I'm not saying they aren't fouls. It's just the referees have not done a good job defining game in and game out what is a foul.
It was super liberal in other games, super tight in this game. You got to kind of find that middle ground to kind of make it even on both sides. But I'm still feeling a little verklempt, a little overwhelmed by the way that thing played out. And I feel like, the way the Sixers played, I was surprised the way Jaylen Brown came out. I thought that was a bad omen. I thought that Harden catching fire wasn't going to happen initially in that first quarter, but then in the second and third quarter, he really showed up and played. And I hate how, Doc only goes 3 deep on the bench right here, but it's just, to me, like some of Jalen McDaniels' athleticism could be useful. The Sixers tend to pack it in at times when guys go to the basket, and then that allows Joel Embiid's man to leak out to the 3-point line, like Al Horford has so many clear looks at the hoop because Embiid's protecting the rim. So he's like, oh, let me fade away while Tatum drives and gets double teamed so I can be a good outlet. So like I said, the Sixers should be grateful for how things played out because so many of Boston's shots didn't fall, and that contributed to the Sixers win. They're going to have to figure some things out in order to bounce back and regroup and be better in Game 5.
No, you're absolutely right. Harden was fantastic. Like, you put him to the side, he was great. He was incredible. Right. But when you look at everything else, there was some. They were fortunate in a number of areas. Tobias overall has done a nice job on Tatum, for example, man for man. Tatum ended up getting it going, but the Sixers were in the lead partially because he started out 0 for 8, and Tobias has done a good job on him. The issue is, though, you mentioned Jaylen Brown. They really have not had an answer for him, and Tobias can't guard 2 players. And unfortunately, Jalen McDaniels has made himself basically unplayable in this series. The thinking would be in that he's been so poor. The reason Niang played so long and they were able to get back into the game, the Celtics, while Niang's out there, is because McDaniels has been so poor. And I don't like to call players. I don't call players soft. I don't like calling players, weak or anything like that. But it seems like the moment may be too big for him. Like, he's not a well-rounded. Would you
feel the same way?
When it comes to Ben Simmons, it's a little different though because it's been proven. He don't like basketball. Yeah, he is soft, but he doesn't like basketball. I think McDaniels is a player. McDaniels. But with him not being able to really be playable, he seems lost on both ends. Like, Niang made some threes, so Doc was probably thinking, I can leave him in here because he'll make enough shots. And unfortunately, he goes cold right when the Celtics start making their run. They kick it out to Niang for a couple open shots. He misses all of them. It puts them in a bind. But McDaniels has been poor on both ends. And he's a guy who, at least athletically, you would think, would be able to slow Jaylen Brown down. And the straight drives, like the last play in overtime, actually in regulation when they took the lead, the play was when Smart made the 3, was the one that counted was drive on whoever Maxey's guarding. When they bring help, kick to that person, they'll be wide open. And it keeps working over and over again because Maxey's not ready. Well, if you had another long defender like McDaniels out there, maybe that can mitigate things. Instead, they've had to go with Melton, who's a nice defender but much smaller. And the Celtics have really feasted in some of those matchups because McDaniels just does not seem comfortable in this moment. Maybe against the Heat, if it's them, or the Knicks, or who knows, maybe NBA Finals, he'll be more comfortable. Against this team, it seems like the moment, against this Celtics team, it seems like the moment's too big for him, and there's repercussions, and there seems to be a ripple effect. Meanwhile, yeah, but the Celtics, the reason why you can make argument they've been the better team, even though it's 2-2, but the tough part is it doesn't matter. Like, it's like this 5 is equaling your 5 at a given moment, but it just seems like their 5 is worth more. Like, if this was a hand of spades, they seem like they have more spades than the Sixers.
They got the big joker and the little joker.
That's what it feels like at times. Or maybe they have more spades, but Embiid and Harden are the big and little joker, and that's keeping them in. It's something like that.
They got
but
the ace, the king, the 2, the everything. Yeah, I got
you. But they got the 2 that's keeping them in it, because these rim runs without Embiid in the game, I don't know how many points the Celtics would have in the paint, for example, if Embiid wasn't in there, because it seems like they're able to get to the paint so easy, and it's frustrating to watch at times.
And that's the super weird thing about it, where even how much about basketball doesn't quite correlate sometimes, because they won without Embiid in game 1 with Boston running to the rim like quite often. So it's just so weird, and you just really have to watch the games and be keyed in to understand what happens. And hopefully we bring some clarity here on the Sixers Talk podcast. We're going to talk more about this game, of course, and what a weird weekend it was, trying to stomach all these Boston fans in town, with the Phillies playing the Red Sox and the Sixers playing the Celtics. So we'll get into that here shortly. Let's play some bills, though. We are brought to you by Wilmington University, of course. Wilmington University and students are in the game, upskill in fields like cybersecurity, fintech, healthcare, and education, in person or online. Get in the game at Wilmington University. Find us at wilmu.edu. Injured for over 70 years, Lundy Law has been the #1 personal injury law firm in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Their services are exemplary. Their results are exceptional. Call 1-800-LUNDY-LAW to get the money you deserve. Hey, it's time to rush to new rewards at Rivers Casino. Now there's a whole new way for you to earn, redeem, and level up your rewards. Get your new Rush Rewards card and get more out of your game at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Back here on the Sixers Talk podcast. And Ty, man, I am so over trying to stomach the Veritek jerseys at the Sixers game and the Tatum jerseys at the Phillies game. It was a wild, coincidental convening of the Boston and Sixer and Philadelphia fan bases, as the Red Sox were in town for a series. Of course, the Celtics were in town for these 2 games. And it just, if the shoe was on the other foot, of course, all these Phillies fans would be in Boston and New England and, giving people the business and having a good time. I am over it. I'm ready to throw up from all of this Boston, the vibes that I've gotten in here, all the cutaways to these Celtics fans and everything. I am over it. They can take their sorry asses back home. But what did you make of it? I mean, this does give it a certain fervor and feel, though, that so many people enjoy when it comes to sports.
You're absolutely right. I hate it because I don't like those Boston fans. I just don't like them. I don't like the Boston fans. They whine like, okay, the Bruins lose. They had the best record in the regular season in hockey. Then they lose. And you got fans talking about like, oh, look at all our storied history, how tough it's been. Y'all need to all shut up. You don't know what it's like to be tough until you come to a city like this. Like, that's nothing compared to what we go through.
I enjoyed them losing so much in that game.
Too.
Was it game 7 too, right? Was it
game 7. They were up 3-1 in the series.
It was overtime. It was overtime.
And they lose 3-1. And they're taking over. And then the worst part is Friday it starts off where Wheeler's on the mound with the Phillies. Sixers playing a game where they know if they can win 2 at home, they're going to steal this series.
Right.
They both teams lose. Then you got to hear from them with the accent, and they talking about, Harvard and all this.
They're in our local bars watching these games. They're all over.
And they're comfortable. And the thing is, they're from a city that's kind of similar to Philadelphia, so they're not afraid.
They don't scare as easy. You can't back them down as much.
No, they're not scared at all. They're comfortable going into enemy territory just like we are. This isn't like San Diego fans or
right.
Miami fans aren't going to travel. You're going to have a couple people in a Jimmy Butler jersey, but these Celtics fans and these Red Sox fans are used to the wars. They're not scared of nothing. And then they go and win like they played 5 games, Thankfully, we go 2-0. On Sunday. Otherwise, they won the first 3 games coming in our city.
Right. At least the getaway day. We got the getaway day. Let's take the getaway day and hold on to that one on both sides, Sixers and Phillies. But I got a confession to make, and some people who listen to the podcast know this, but this came to a head on Friday in a way I didn't expect. It was super funny to me because I'm married to a Celtics fan. And thankfully, though, my wife isn't a Patriots fan, so she's a Celtics fan just because she grew up in the 80s in New England, and that was just it was on TV every weekend. She just has some fond stories and funny stuff. But here, as we go head to head, it is not as funny or fond. But bro, we're out Friday, sitting at the bar, me and my wife, a packed spot. I won't say where, but a local haunt that many people might know, but we're in there, the ball gets tipped up, and in my fervor and excitement, I yell, "Game time, let's go, come on," like something like that, right? And I forget who scored. Maybe Embiid came down and scored a bucket, or maybe they missed, but then my wife goes, "Let's go, Celtic!" Like, she just starts cheering, like the whole bar, bro. The whole bar turned, like, and I just start cracking up laughing. I'm like, "Yo, why would you do that?" She's like, "Why did you did it first?" I was like, "But I'm rooting for my team. Like, you can't just be in here." Bro, she started openly rooting for the Celtics, like clapping loud and the whole bit. And it was funny as hell. And I'm so glad they lost today. But at the time, it was like, like one of those types.
Wow. Yeah, it's like, come on. Like, they're bold. See? You see, now I'm not speaking.
They're bold. They're bold.
Exactly. They're bold.
Exactly.
Like there's a certain level of humility certain fans move with when they come to the city. Even Mets fans are quiet so they get the lead. They humble themselves till it's late in the game. Not these Celtics fans.
Well, at least you ain't see. Well, they have some. I guess couth is the word. I don't know, because it wasn't a parade at the Rocky statue. You know what I'm saying? They realize, some stuff you can't do that. Some stuff you can't do. The Vikings and the Niners and all that, they don't know any better because they probably come to Philly like once in their lifetime. You know what I'm saying? But as a Celtics fan, like, we're not going to Paul Revere statue and hanging a Sixers jersey on. Like, we know better than to do something stupid like that. But but yeah, I'm fighting wars in my own home, bro. I'm fighting wars in my own home. So this series stretches far beyond the basketball court for me. But all right, Ty, we got a game in between here.
Mm-hmm.
Game 5. You said it a little while ago. Whoever wins game 5 wins the series. What do you think the Sixers have to do to regroup and push forward here? And how do you see things playing out in game 5? Honestly, what's your gut telling you?
My gut tells me they have a shot because I think Embiid found a little something in the overtime. Because the fourth quarter, he was not good. I'm not going to pretend like he was good in the fourth quarter. He was not. I think fatigue played a factor in it, but regardless of why, he found something in overtime in that some of those drives that were going downhill, he was back to changing shots. So it's not just in the box score with him, because the Celtics have so many guys that are comfortable getting to the rim, and that they have White, Brogdon, Brown, Tatum, and Smart and Grant Williams at times that are all comfortable getting to the rim, creating some on their own.
Talk about how Horford was able to lock him up down the stretch and kind of score on the other end. So I think that doesn't translate to game 5.
I think a lot of that was fatigue related, and I think Doc will have to maybe walk a line a little bit different with the minutes, because I noticed right at the end of the third, they're still up 9. They were stalemate. The Sixers were up 9 at the half, still up 9. He goes out of the game, and Niang misses a shot, and it leads to a fast break, and Derek White scores.
Mm-hmm.
And Embiid Embiid comes back in the game. I know it's the playoffs. He probably brought him back a bit too soon. I think Embiid was still tired in that particular spot. I'm not taking away from Horford, but I think Horford was fresher because they had Robert Williams, who they can trust. He didn't trust Paul Reed, and I don't blame him today. And he went small a couple times, and that didn't go well. So Embiid's only going to get in better shape coming back from that injury and only get better. So, and we know from watching him that he's better the more basketball that gets played. So I think he'll be better. Harden's going to be an X factor. And then what do you get from Maxey? The Celtics kind of have his number. He had a couple moments here and there, but offensively, he's super struggling. For 4 quarters of a game. And defensively, he just doesn't have a good matchup. There's no one you can hide him on. We were talking about Maxey. There's just no one you can hide him on. And really, there's only one team in the playoffs. Nobody else is really like that. You can't put him on like a Strus, who's just going to stand still and shoot threes. They don't have a guy that just does that.
Right.
Everyone that they have that he would guard is comfortable. Comfortable putting the ball on the floor. So it puts him. So he needs to have a better game. Talking about Maxey somehow, especially on the offensive end. Tobias is going to have to keep trying to slow down Tatum. I'm sure he's getting frustrated. And then can anybody just can Jaylen Brown just have a bad game? Like, can he he seems so comfortable out there. Like, can he have a bad game? I think the Sixers can get it in game 5. It's going to be tough. It's going to look something like this one.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a walkover. And then you come back home, and then I think they can get it in 6, but I don't think that game would be easy either, to be honest.
I picked the Sixers in 7 to start.
So did I.
I feel like, the Celtics miss shots that they might normally make, or, and you could say that for the Sixers as well. But obviously the Celtics are putting up, 40 plus 3-pointers. And so that's going to be difficult to quantify, how many shots will they make or miss, or how many shots will the Sixers make or miss. So that stuff kind of is a wash. But what they can control, Ty, is the effort, the hustle, the energy, the second chance points. Like, okay, the Celtics have all these interchangeable positionless players, but you can still box out and crash the boards and keep them off the glass and just get to those 50-50 balls. So some of that stuff is what I'm most perturbed by, or like, it's like, those are the things that make you like yell from your couch and, throw stuff at the TV when, they're not given the finishing effort to get the rebound or getting on the floor. And I say get on the floor. I'm just saying that because that's comes up from time to time. That's not going to really decide the game, but it's a byproduct of the way you're out there playing. You know what I'm saying? You're playing so hard that anything in your way, you're going to try to gobble up, or, take the charge, or, contest a shot, or close out properly, or things like that. So I think it's just those little things I think that the Celtics do better, that I think helps them and gives them an edge in these close games. So, and particularly like the way you come back and eat up a team's lead because of the hustle and those extra plays and offensive rebounds and second chance points and all that stuff. So those are the things I think the Sixers can tighten up with. We haven't even talked about, and I want to give them props on the defense that they played. I thought that zone was horrible. Like, why are they doing that? And then lo and behold, the zone really helped them out in a lot of ways, because it does, like you said, hide Maxey a little bit. So he's not having to guard one-on-one as much, and really just have to focus on staying in front of guys, which they also have problems with sometimes. But I'm just looking for them to have that extra oomph. Particularly, I think they play well on the road as well. So I want to see that road mentality come out here in game 5 to push them to victory.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of that you just mentioned is a mix. There's the effort part, which is absolutely a part of it. Mm-hmm. And then I think the Celtics are also just more athletic at times. And that's where you need the bench guys. Because I think these starters are having to exert a lot to keep that ball moving, keep the ball rolling. Mm-hmm. And that's where, if any of the bench guys, Melton, who had a really good game in game 1, he would be an energy guy. Niang, I don't think on the road that's going to work. Do they go back to McDaniel? Do they go to 7-man rotation? Does he change it up? Like, I'm interested in seeing what other guy can be that. Maybe it is Paul Reed. Maybe it's Paul Reed again. You flush this game, get back at it, because he's a guy who has some of that ability to do some of those things. Because I think that Tobias, I think he's gassed guarding Tatum. I don't know how much more he has left. What I mean, to do that stuff.
His feet aren't as quick to stay in front of those two guys, Jalen and Jason.
And Jason, it's so tough, and it's not an excuse. People think I'm making an excuse. No. When I'm looking at these games now for 4 games, and I'm saying, if I'm going down, who's faster, and then who's quicker? That first step and all that kind of stuff. I think that's played a role more than I know fans, especially in Philadelphia, always want to go to toughness. In the fourth quarter, the Sixers weren't tough. And now I'm going to believe that suddenly they were tough again in overtime. No, I think this team is tough. Yeah. I think it's just a matter of the Celtics having more good players. And when that happens, there's these stretches. And unfortunately, it happened for them in the fourth quarter. It happened in the third quarter of game 2, where all of a sudden you see the gap sometimes of when the Celtics are at their best. If the Sixers aren't at their best, it's a large gap. While if the Sixers are at their best and the Celtics aren't, it's like the Sixers have to work harder to be better. than the Celtics. The Celtics, things can come easy. Nothing's coming easy for the Sixers team, and they have to approach that knowing that going in. Like nothing, they were playing really well. 16 and then 2 threes. Boom. Derek White makes a 3. Boom. Brown makes a 3. 16's 10, just like that. 2 possessions. Boom, boom. The Sixers don't really have that going with a lot of their guys other than Harden and Embiid so far in the playoffs, and that part has been tough. And if they can just find another star for one game, can Maxey be a star? He hasn't really had a game like that. And I know he might not be able to do it over 7. Does he have one game? Like, could Tuesday be the game where Maxey gets you 30? If that's the case, they win. But if he can't, where are the points? Where's all that stuff going to come from? Because the Celtics come at you in waves.
Frustrating if the Sixers can't get by the Celtics, because this is the moment where it's kind of tailor-made for them. If they can get past Boston, you got either the Knicks, who are the 4 seed, and the 8 seed. So it's like if you just get by Boston, there's an easier road for you to get to the finals than you've ever had in the past. So this Game 5 will be crucial, and be sure to check out Ty Johnson on the best show ever from 2 to 6 on NBC Sports Philadelphia or 97.5 The Fanatic. Mr. formerly of Sixers Outsiders, we appreciate you joining us, and enjoy your time in between now and when you get back to work. Ty, much love as always. Thank you. We appreciate your insight. This has been the Sixers Talk podcast, brought to you by Wilmington University. WilMU Works. We'll see you next time.